All right, so we're going to do a little bit of extra work on introductions for a thesis or an argumentative essay for those of you who are still struggling with how to introduce things, especially in a timed right statement, but also in prepared essays. So we're going to be looking at that synthesis question about the cost of college, and we're going to look today at introductions. All right, so introducing your position. First, you want to make sure that when you are deciding on your position statement, that you don't want to do something that's overly complicated or something that's like fuzzy, meaning that you're not really clearly stating your position. You want to make sure that your position is clear and that it is definitely argumentative. You want to make sure that your language that you use is precise and that there's no question about what that language is or what it means. So looking at the college cost idea, remember the issue for this is whether or not the positive aspects of college outweigh its cost. So you decide, do the positive aspects of college, are they worth it? Or whether the returns on the college investment are not worth it. So let's look at three different statements. So here's one. Going to college is a rite of passage that many Americans undertake every year. This is not a thesis statement. It's not argumentative. It's a statement of fact that doesn't make an argument. This is not a thesis. So this is not good. This one, effects of attending college are generally positive. All right, we're working towards a thesis statement here, but it is not specific enough because it doesn't introduce our line of reasoning. Remember, we want to make sure that we're aiming towards getting that sophistication point. So we want to introduce our line of reasoning, which means that we kind of introduce a little bit of our arguments. Look at this thesis statement. It is a split thesis. Although a college education is expensive, that's the opposing side, it generally provides students with a broader future and more opportunities for advancement than not attending college. So we understand that we're going to write this essay, something about college education being expensive, but despite all that, we have good opportunities for advancement. So I'm expecting that's what my line of reasoning is going to be. How do we get those opportunities for advancement? All right, qualifying words. In the last thesis statement, this one, generally. So words like generally or in general in the position statements do something really interesting. It makes the statement less dogmatic. That means it allows moments for argument in there. It shows the complexity of the argument. You are saying that the argument is shades of gray, not black and white. So if we look at that argument, once again, it is saying that in general, you're not saying straight out, it provides students with a broader future. That qualitative or that qualifying word in that statement actually makes your thesis statement better because it's harder to argue with it. So let's look at, ignore this part here. Let's look at those qualifying statements. So almost, frequently, generally, in most cases, likely, often, customarily. Those are the words that you want to think about inserting into your thesis statement so that your thesis statement isn't always. You want to make that thesis statement true. All right. So where do you put your position statement in the introduction? You can choose to put it in the first sentence and have it right out there and go from a thesis statement and then just start writing your essay. That is perfectly fine. You can introduce your thesis statement in the introduction within the first sentence with a little bit of background information before it. That is also fine. You'll still get the thesis point. In order to get the sophistication point, you have to first create a context for the thesis. So you have to give ease into it, just like you would in a prepared essay. So search through the sources for interesting ideas that you can adapt that will draw readers into your essay as an attention getter, or think about your own life to do that. So let's look at how you do that. There are different types of introductions and attention getters that you can use. The first is an incident or anecdote related to what you're about to tell. So you can choose a personal story. So here is an example. My father was Harold Westphal, who graduated from high school in 1955. Notice I don't say when my father graduated from high school in 1955. I say his name. When Harold Westphal graduated from high school in 1955 with a D average and plans to go into the Air Force. So I give the background about him. Then I move on with how it relates to the thesis. Little did he realize that not only would he end up with a doctorate in international relations and foreign diplomacy, but that he would be teaching at a prestigious college, encouraging other young students to earn their degrees and make their marks in the world. None of this would have been possible without encouragement from others to expand his horizons and help from the government to pay for his education. All right, so I give this background anecdote from my own life, my father's experience of going to college. But notice that I don't put myself into the story. This is my father's story. This is an anecdote that I'm using him in the third person. And now I go into my thesis statement. Although a college education did not have the same price tag in 1955 that it does today, it generally provides individuals with a broader future and more potential for living a worthwhile life than not achieving a degree. So here I've got this anecdote in the beginning, and then I end with my thesis statement. Brief anecdote. Let's look at another type. A provocative idea in an ordinary way, or an ordinary idea worded in a provocative way. So we're dealing with, this is also a common misconception. You can use that as an attention getter. So the cultural myth is that a college degree will open doors and fill one's pocket with gold, but the achievement of degree does not always guarantee a successful future. So basically I'm saying an ordinary idea, you aren't guaranteed a great future because you have a college degree, but look at the way that I stated it. It will open doors and fill one's pockets with gold. So that's kind of a unique way of saying that thing. And it also is, like revealing a cultural misconception, which is a good type of introduction as well. I would go on and put a thesis at the end of that. All right, so for my attention getter, I can use a quotation from the prompt or from the sources or from my readings or from my experience. So this is a combination of my experience and a quote directly from one of the sources. As thousands of high school juniors and seniors begin to polish up their college application essays and prepare to head to college, they are confronted with a reality they did not expect. The rewards for the time, energy, and money put into college are less than they were a decade ago. The benefit of doing this is that it also counts as using one of the sources. So if you're looking at, remember that you have to have 3 or more sources in order to pass that synthesis exam, you can use one as an attention getter and it counts as using that source. So you can use that as a quote from one of the sources. Okay, commonly held assumption, or define a word in a startling way. So that commonly held assumption that I showed you before about college opening doors and lining your pockets with gold, that's that. Let's look at how you define a word. So here's one way we can get attention. The word college can be defined as a pathway to a new and better future that takes us away from what our past molds us to be into a future that we mold ourselves. So that's a definition that we can include in that. If we look at the reverse side, we can define college as an investment of money, time, and energy that may never be rewarded. And I make that specific in that statement. One final type of introduction is asking a question. So we begin with, why has the price of college education continued to skyrocket while the numbers of those attending college have also grown? And then the essay provides an answer to that, but so does my introduction. And then I can go into my thesis at the end of it. So those are the different types of introductions that you can consider using for your synthesis essay or for any essay that you're writing. Anytime you want to review this, it will be available for you in the class documents. All right, have yourselves a wonderful day, and I hope you've gotten some ideas for your introductions.